Brian O'Driscoll, your chosen subject is yourself. There's two Mayfainers up here, is there, I suppose? I was going to try and see how nervous everybody. It's very unusual to be sitting in the round. You can't get very nervous. You kind of can't scratch your bum in this situation. You're doing it in front of somebody else, and your dad is just behind you. But this is mad, isn't it?
It is, and I'm going to talk to these people largely, but the answers are for you people as well. It is strange, but the whole night has been quite nuts as well. It's been from coming over the Beckett Bridge to seeing yourself on the Convention Centre. That's not an everyday thing. So yeah, it's definitely one to savour, and I'm really enjoying myself up to this point.
We'll try and make it easy for you. You know all the answers, mind you. But there are very few testimonials in Ireland, and it is a kind of a difficult one in some ways. But you've made it magnificent by making certain that everything's going for charity.
I don't want to actually deliver my speech to you right here now. I still have to do that in an hour and a half's time. But obviously, I do feel extremely fortunate, the career that I've managed to have, and I've been very lucky. And it is a small opportunity just to give a little bit back from something that I've gotten a huge amount of satisfaction from.
It's not that small, really, though, is it?
Let's hope not, people.
Yeah. We'll put you all under a little bit of pressure later on. I mean, when you go back all the way back, and we're going to have a little run through your life, when we go back all the way to when you were a young fella, did you ever think that was there a moment in time when you said, this is what I want to do, I want to be a rugby player?
No, not at all. I think because I grew up essentially through the amateur era. I was only just leaving school when the game turned professional in '95. So it wasn't an ambition that you had in school, because there was no existence of professional rugby. And you look at kids now coming out of school and they're asked, what do you want to do? I want to be a professional rugby player. It seems really strange compared to our time was, you'll get into, try and do this course or try and do something that will earn a living. Rugby just wasn't that option. So to be able to find myself falling into rugby, I did a couple of years in college, out of school, in something that I wasn't overly interested in, and I found myself getting capped as a 20-year-old, and I kind of looked at myself and thought, how did I find myself here with all these guys that I'd followed and supported for my whole teenage years, and the next thing I'm sharing a dressing room with them, and I'm barely wet behind the ears, and it's nuts, and you're living in this little bubble, and you just don't want it to end. And thankfully, you get over that quickly, and you get over the joy of playing for Ireland, and then as a selfish person, you want to start winning for Ireland, and that's when it all kicks off.
And what was it like for your family? I know you're going to talk about your family later on, but what was it like? How did they react when suddenly you go from being a schoolboy rugby player to being an international rugby player? They've always been brilliant supporters of me, and I will go on a little bit more at length about them later on. But it was, I was playing 21s for Ireland, and I remember I played against Wales, and it was 20 minutes to go. I didn't have a great game, and I got subbed off for someone else, and I thought that's my chances of really progressing for the next while gone. And somehow I got called into a national camp, and I trained okay. And the next thing, I got a call from one of the admin people in the IRFU saying, you're not playing for the A's this weekend, and said you're going to be sitting on the bench for Ireland. And it was the first time that Ireland played against Italy in a Six Nations game, and I could not believe, I was there. It was beyond any level of expectation. I just really wanted to be capped by the A's, and the next thing I skipped that and went straight to sitting on the bench. I didn't get capped that day, but I managed to get capped on the summer tour against Australia later on that summer against some of my real heroes. I got to play against my childhood hero, Tim Horan, in my first cap. And I
I remember I was pretty calm about it all, going over there, played a couple of warm-up games, played reasonably well, and anyway ran out for the first test match. I thought, this is okay, there's no biggie. And then fireworks went off and I shat myself. And it was like a dog on Halloween night. And I thought, wow, they've got fireworks at a game. This really is a big deal. So from there, I suppose you grow into it. And then, you know, we lost the first couple of games. We lost those 2 tests. And then, you know, very quickly, I found myself with a group of players that, you know, that weren't used to losing. And you know, I think from early 2000 we managed to turn a lot of things around.
And we'll talk about more of the rugby guys in a while, but at that stage, how did your friends react? Friends that you'd grown up with?
I probably didn't answer the question talking about my family.
Really,
I didn't really. But my friends, you know, they were, I suppose, the first while Ireland didn't go brilliantly. The first 6 months of my international career, we lost more than we won. We, you know, had a disastrous World Cup in '99 in Leinster.
I was there too, so I feel that pain, to be honest.
One to forget. And then, you know, we got hockeyed against England in the first Six Nations game, and then there were wholesale changes made, and then we went over to France, and naive me didn't realise, you know, we hadn't won there in 30 odd years, and scored a few tries, and we won the game, and this is great, yeah, it's very exciting. But then I didn't realise the enormity of it until we got back home, and it was nice just to live all that craziness with, you know, your friends and your family, because, you know, they're the ones that know you best, and just to get them to share those special occasions with them is of utmost importance to you.
I remember that day, and I probably should tell a story. I was captain that day, and I'd had all those days in the past when we got hockeyed by France in France. And I don't want this to be a total love fest, but I remember in the middle of that game looking, and Dennis O'Brien mentioned it earlier on, the scooping the ball up in the hand as you run in to score. I was watching that from about 30 yards further back, crawling off my knees. And I remember just thinking, anything is possible now. And there was this young kid that had suddenly come on and had a bit of magic about him. And the chairman of the event in London, Harry Keogh, is a very, very good friend of mine. I had somehow managed to convince the very, very hungover Brian O'Driscoll to join me for lunch in Drummond's in London. And I said, I have a special guest for you, I'm not going to tell you who it is. And I think, honest to God, I've never seen any case of man love like Harry Keogh has for Brian O'Driscoll ever since that day when I brought him in. But that was the change for me. And it was a change for me as captain, but it was a change for the team, because suddenly there was a belief that actually if things weren't going so well, you could still have somebody who could score 3 tries. And an awful lot changed at that time.
I think the big change for me was, as you know, I think they're the self-proclaimed saviours of Irish rugby were 5 guys that were capped the week before. France, Raj, John Hayes, Stringer, Shane Horgan, and Simon Easterby, and you know, you look at the careers that all 5 of them subsequently went on to have. I think, you know, Gats made some decisions right in his career.
Fairness to only some.
So I think that injection of youth and Hayes just meant that, you know, you're bringing in a load of personnel that were just used to winning at underage level. We didn't have that. You know, that the expectation of Irish teams to go hard for 50 or 60 minutes and then capitulate. We were used to winning at underage levels, winning at schools, winning at 21s. We were always in the hunt for you know, winning Six Nations and winning Grand Slams. Very, very nearly there. I think those players coming through just brought a different beat to the whole setup, and it brought a positivity that changed the game in Ireland, hopefully forever, but certainly for the last 10 or 15 years.
Very soon after that, you became captain. What did that mean to you?
I distinctly remember the time it happening, because obviously you were captain and you were going to be out for a while for the November Test matches in 2002, and I remember Eddie O'Sullivan chose you to come down to my room in the Glenview to offer me the captaincy rather than actually offer it himself, which is a little weird if you ask me. But
it was a handing over
yourself,
of the mantle,
you know, talk about man love, Eddie O'Sullivan and Keith Wood, my God. But I remember you coming in and saying it, and obviously without any hesitation, I said yes. What a huge honour. I was 23 at the time, and you went brilliant and went back and told Eddie, and then I was sitting in my room on my own and thought, oh my God, what have I done? Now actually comes the role of being captain. How am I meant to captain all of these guys, that have played for so many years? Some of these guys are actually married. And I kind of felt, if I am going to captain things, I got to do it my way. And I suppose I looked at the different...
You did say it to me, actually. One of the things, I said, how are you going to captain? I'm going to be the captain that the players like. That's actually what he said, and I thought it was very mean, but very sensitive,
I think I was in the fortunate position that when the team that I inherited then as captain was, there were speakers, and in the period before that, I did feel sorry for you in that you did find yourself as being a voice largely on your own, and if a question was asked, if no one spoke, I'm sure you probably felt the need that you had to be that voice, and I've subsequently been in other teams and felt the need to be that person, but I had a good core of leaders, like Anthony Foley and Raj and Humps were vying for the 10 slot, and Dennis Hickey had made his way back into the national setup, and I think he always had some very relevant things to say. So I think I was fortunate in the side that I had around me, that there were ready-made leaders willing to chirp in, and I didn't just have to be the only voice. I could kind of just try and lead by the way I played.
If we jump over from that over to Leinster, and there was a lot of lows with Leinster at the start, but then followed by truly incredible highs. What would you put that down to?
Yeah, lots of lows. I think probably the worst thing that ever happened to us was winning the inaugural Celtic League against Munster in 2000 or 2001. I'm not sure, we had a man sent off after 30 minutes, and we came back from being behind at half-time and played brilliantly. And we had a very talented team, but we didn't have the work ethic that I look at the sides, the Leinster sides that I've been involved in the last few years. And I guess we probably thought that we were the Dogs Lee Roadie a little bit. And it's a dangerous place to think that you're the finished article just because you've won one competition. And I think we probably subsequently stuttered years after, thinking, our ability will bring us through rather than our hard graft. And it's got to be a combination of the two. And eventually we discovered that was the case, that you had to have a little bit of bitterness, you had to have the talent, and you had to have that hard work. That's the combination of those three things, along with a little bit of, that little bit of luck, to make sure that you get across in the big games, and we managed to do it. And I think we just piggybacked on that feeling of we're in it now. We can compete year on year, and I think that feeling is still there.
And I thought the second victory seemed to be the most impressive, because there was a feeling that maybe having achieved the high, that you may have taken your foot off the pedal a little.
Yeah, I think as well the teams we beat that year were very, very strong. There was Saracens, Racing Metro, and Claremont in our group, and then we had to beat Leicester and Toulouse in the quarters and semis. Granted, both home games, but
two sides with an incredible history in the competition. So to go and then find ourselves 16 points down at half-time to Northampton and be able to pull our way back into it, I think that gave huge satisfaction, and it kind of felt as though that we had arrived on the European stage a lot more, that lots of teams have won it once, but not that many have won it twice or more.
And when you go on to think of, or do you view the Lions as being the top of the tree, the top accolade?
It's strange, because you're representing far more people. Obviously, with Ireland, you represent 5 million. Your province, considerably less. But you're representing 70 odd million, and then however many others around the world, expats around the world. So the support base is phenomenal, and it's so unique. And being able to find yourself picked in the top 35 players in the home nations in that given year is a huge honour. Except for Clive Woodward's, that was the top 165 players. But to find yourself in that is not easy, and you have to. You can play brilliantly in between, but if you don't play well that year, you're not included. And lots of guys have fallen by the wayside in that. There were certs, the November series beforehand, but just vanished.
I had great fun slagging Anthony Foley for being the only player in the British Isles not to be picked on that Lions tour. He took it very badly, but very sensitive. You've had good times and bad times with the Lions, but you have come away with a Lions Test victory at the end of it.
Yeah,
Does
that's important.
that crown off your career? Is that one thing that you're absolutely
really
missing?
important? Really important. I remember, I'm quite interested in Twitter, looking at it rather than actually adding to it myself. But I remember reading the Sydney Morning Herald journalist saying, if the Lions lose the series against the Wallabies this year, will Brian O'Driscoll be the most unsuccessful Lion of all time? And I thought, I really don't want that hanging over me. And we all find our motivation from different places, and there was a little bit of it there, but it's hugely, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, of course. I think that's well documented, but to have it on your CV that you're a Lions series winner, as you're able to say, there's not that many out there, and it is nice to be part of that club. I remember, afterwards, obviously, I did an interview with my friend Shane Horgan, who has moved to the other side and started doing some work for Sky. And I got a little bit of stick for, saying a few things about Gats, and I said that he wasn't on the Christmas card list. Well, one of my friends, a little bit after that, sent me a text. A couple of days later, sent me a text. Said, I saw your interview about Gats and him not being on the Christmas card list. I said, let's be honest. What self-respecting 30-something-year-old male sends Christmas cards anyway? Cop onto yourself.
You're going to hang up your boots this year. Is that true, or are you dragging us on a bit longer?
No, I can't drag the retirement thing on any longer. I've done a job on it already. I wasn't sure I would play this year, but a number of different things, including how the body felt. Talking to my wife Amy, and then obviously a big aspect too was seeing Joe Schmidt taking up the reins of Ireland coach was a big incentive to stay on for another one, because I'm a big believer that any team that he's involved in, he'll make things happen. He has that infectious persona, and I think he's definitely the best coach I've ever been coached by. This year is an exciting prospect, and no more so than starting next week against Samoa.
Did I hear that you were trying to play for UCD tomorrow?
There was talk.
I'll tell you, there was talk, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Was true, yeah.
I hadn't played any games, and the boys played tonight, and obviously I'm here, and I couldn't be there, so I thought, I did find out, I did look at the fixture list first to make sure UCD were at home. I wasn't going playing, City of Derry, or for that matter, down in Dolphin. So it's Dolphin at home tomorrow evening, and Joe had said to me, he did say, how brilliant would it be, he's a little bit of a romantic at heart. He said, how brilliant would it be playing for your club, and then 3 weeks later trying to take on and beat the All Blacks. So I said, let's just go with the second part. And we didn't talk about it all week. We didn't mention UCD. I didn't mention UCD, and he didn't either. So it'd be a surprise if I get a call saying, by the way, you're in tomorrow afternoon.
What are you going to miss?
Lots of things. I think the camaraderie, most of all, that you do. You do hear sportsmen in general that are involved, sportsmen and women in general that are involved in team sports. They miss the fun of the dressing room, and that is undescribable at times. It's just a laugh, and it gives you a reason. Guys? It gives you a good reason to go in every day because you're going to have
Who are the
fun.
main guys that crack you up?
Do you know what? It's not. It's not even individuals. There's always characters. There's within Leinster. There's the moment. There's Fergus McFadden and some of the younger lads. Brendan Mackin does takes off everybody brilliantly. He does. Ryle Nugent. I know he's here tonight. If you YouTube Brendan Mackin doing Ryle Nugent, it's not a porn site. He actually does an excellent impression of Ryle. Guy used to be our manager, and so guys like that, I think they keep you young.
And what will you do when you finish?
I'm kind of just weighing up some options. I'm not. Obviously the kicking coach spot in racing is gone, so there's one thing. There's one thing off the list. I've been involved in a couple of different projects. There's a rugby app that I hope everyone knows called Ultimate Rugby that hopefully I'll get a little bit more involved in when the time allows next year. I think that's really exciting. A small player management company that I can't really be involved in at the moment because they represent a few of the lads on the team. So I've had to take a step away from that called Icon. So maybe a bit of that, and then one or two other things. I think I do want to remain in the game in some capacity because I have such a passion for it. It's hard to just let it go completely. I don't think I'm going to be involved in a coaching capacity because I want to get away from the game, but I want to be able to just sample it here and there. So maybe a little bit of punditry, and that's it, folks. So I think maybe that's my way of staying in touch with the game.
And just as we're about to finish, before the thing blows up, could you just give, there's a lot of international players here, but there's a huge amount of people who have not represented Ireland. Could you just give a little inkling of what it meant to you to play for your country?
I think it's, you talked about the Lions there, but other than the Lions, I think playing for your country is the ultimate honour in something in the sport that we obviously play. I've played 125 times for Ireland, and I think I could play for another 1,025 times, and I would never bore of pulling the jersey on. The feeling of the dressing room before you go out, standing for your national anthem, knowing at times that you really have to dig in with teams when things aren't going well. I think there's lots of different aspects to the game, but great friendships and camaraderie, and great times. I think back to some incredibly magical moments in Paris, the World Cup beating Australia, the Slam. They're all memories and links to friends that will
remain there for a long, long time. I don't see much of John Hayes, but we fought some hard days with one another, and I know you have that chemistry that next time I see him, you just pick up where you left off, because you've lived that moment with him and you've fought hard with him, and you just know one another, the effort that's gone into achieving some of the things that are worth talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the moment, Mr. Brian O'Driscoll.
Thank you.